What's good YouTube, your boy Nohok is back with another tutorial, and today I'm going to show you guys the best way to mix your beats in FL Studio. None of that clipping or distorting type of stuff that you see on YouTube every day. I definitely gotta make myself clear, there is no one single best way to mix your beats. It's basically just a bunch of different techniques you can use to get your beats to the highest quality possible. Mixing is definitely an art, but there's also some science behind it. The key to a good mix is basically getting it right from the source. If you use low quality samples or if you're recording suck, then you're probably gonna have a hard time mixing it in post. So it's better to get it right straight from the source. Today I'm gonna be mixing a beat from scratch. The beat is produced by me, of course, but I just want you guys to get a glimpse of my thought process behind mixing a beat, especially in FL. And I'm gonna be giving you guys my mixing template for absolutely free, and I'm gonna link it down below in the description for you to download.
Well, let me just play you the unmixed version of the beat first. Yeah, so as you can hear, it lacks a lot of punch. The kick is too high. The synths are just way too buried in the mix. It takes a lot of work, but we're gonna get there. Okay, now let me show you guys the mixed version of it. Let me show you how it sounds. Obviously, there's a difference in volume, but you can hear the punch that he has. The synths are just way more present, and it just sounds better overall. Let's just get into how I did this. Okay, so the first tip I want to give you guys is start with gain staging, or at least set your levels right before you actually start mixing. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna explain why. Here in FL, you got the input gain knob right here. What you would do with this is set the gain right before it hits the actual mixer, because the input gain is pre-effects and the volume fader in the mixer is actually post-effects. That means that whatever you do with the input gain, if you lower it or if you increase it, then that's gonna affect, for example, a compressor. That's gonna affect how it reacts, or it's gonna affect a saturator. You know what I'm saying? So that's gonna have a lot to do with how your mixes turn out in the end. So okay, let's just start with the mixing. I like to start with the main instrument on the beat. In this case, it's the drums. So let's just hear them in solo. You can hear they're punchy, they're setting a good level. Let me show you how I got to that point. So I'm gonna start with the kick, and then I'm gonna start adding the drum sounds one by one. With the kick, the first thing I did is set it to mono, because since it's a low end instrument, I don't need it to be stereo. I like to keep my low end in mono. I just set it to mono with the stereo separation button right here. I just turn it all the way to the right. That means it's absolutely mono. And then what I did, I left the kick so loud in the unmixed version because I was gonna turn it down with some soft clipping. What soft clipping essentially does, it chops the peak of the transient, so that way you get more perceived loudness, but with the same actual RMS level. So you're not increasing the volume, but it feels like you're increasing the volume. That's why it's such an important tool that you need to have in your arsenal as a mixer. I turn the threshold almost all the way down, and then with the pose, I set the output level, the pose gain. That's a good level, it's sitting at like -10. Then I added the snares. I really didn't do anything to them. Like I didn't feel the need to pretty much just level them how I wanted them. Sometimes you don't need to overcomplicate stuff. Like you don't need to keep adding compressors if you don't really need to compress anything. I would like to say that I chose the right samples for this track, so that's why they sound like they do. Next thing I added was this hi-hat. Apart from just setting the level like I wanted, I pan it to the left a little. So that just to give some more depth to the drums. Not all of them are sitting in the middle, because I don't really need to have every single track in the middle. Then I added another hi-hat to give some more bounce. Turn it down a little, and then I also pan it to the right. I wanted to have, you know, some sort of balance between them. The next thing I added was this perk, and I pan it a little bit to the right. And then I added this open hat, which is crucial for the bounce of the beat, as you heard. Now let's check the drum bus. To make myself clear, I do use buses. I do mix with buses, at least in FL. I know some professional mixing engineers that do not like to use buses. They prefer to use VCAs or other type of parallel processing, which I also do sometimes, but it depends. And right here, using buses fits my workflow better in FL at least, so I do use them. So on the drum bus, first I added Pro Q3. I don't really need the side information of the low end. I added a low cut and I set the stereo placement to sides only, and then I set it to around 82 hertz, 83 hertz, and then I boosted the sides too at around 6K. The next step for me was compressing. So this Buster SE is a free compressor and it's so good, man. It's actually really good for drums and it gives you crystal clear compression. First of all, I want to set the attack to the slowest possible here, which is 30, because you don't want to compress the transient of the track. You want to let it breathe a little and then start compressing. Otherwise, you're going to lose punch if you compress too much. The release, I wanted to set it in the fastest. You could also set it to auto, but for me, it worked better in the fastest setting. I'm only aiming for like 2 to 4 dB of compression. I don't want to over compress my drums. And I set the threshold to my liking. And the last thing is that I do not add any makeup gain, because I'm probably gonna add gain afterwards with another plugin. The next plugin on my list is the Lindell 80 channel from Plugin Alliance. I think I only increase the drive a little to give it some more gain and then push the low end a little bit at 60 hertz. And after that, added some parallel compression. You can see that the mix is at 50% to give you some more body. I don't want to overcomplicate things for you guys. It's just a higher ratio than what I did before, and still the fast release because I want to add punch. So after that, I just added a drum shaper. This is a transient processing plugin. You could use any one that you prefer. In this case, is the one I got. I haven't bought any other. I just increased the attack a little bit and decreased the sustain because I wanted short drums. And the last thing, this plugin does magic, bro. Like, for real. This is just saturation. I'm doing it basically in parallel because I turned the mix down a little. Just hear it without effects. And now with. Since this is a saturator, it's chopping up the highest peaks, basically. While doing that, as I said before, you increase the perceived loudness without actually increasing the RMS level. So you gain a lot of power and you lose level. It's a huge trade-off. If you're not using saturation or soft clipping or any sort of dynamic processing like that, like, you're missing out. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you how I mix the 808 because the 808 is hitting pretty hard. Yeah! Let's just hear it in solo, already mixed. Yeah, pretty good 808. So first thing I added in my chain, again, the black box. I love the plugin, but I'm using just a little bit of it. Actually saturating a lot more, man, but it's in a low mix. I just want it to be heard on like laptop speakers, iPhone speakers, those you could say lower quality speakers. And so yeah, after that, now this is some sauce right here. This is some real tomato sauce, man. What I'm doing with the Pro L2 is a trick that I learned from Skrillex. Like, I'm pretty sure he uses this in his mixes. Now, what I'm doing is I'm setting the limiter in the 1-1 mode. I don't know how to word it, but it increases the limited signal as much as it increases the dry signal. So let me turn it down. Let me turn it down all the way. And then let's play it. You hear what it's doing. You just push it all the way. You push it all the way as hard as you can so you can hear and see what the limiter is doing. That's why I love Pro L2, because you can actually see what you're doing if you're not really familiar with the plugin. Okay, so after you push it hard enough, you can see what it's doing, and then you start pulling back out to a point where you like what you're doing. You're actually limiting, but you're essentially staying in the same level. So you're actually gaining headroom. You can use it on your buses. You can use it on individual tracks like I'm doing. I'm gonna pull it down a little to like where it was. I think it was like a 6.7, 6.8. Let's just look at the meter right here. With it. It's just crazy, man. It's just crazy. You really don't hear that much of a difference in perceived loudness, but in reality, you're getting a lot of headroom, man. The last thing I did to the 808 is side chaining. I already I think I explained it already in one of my previous videos, but I'm gonna explain it a little bit better. I route the kick to the bass, go on the kick track, and then you go to the 808 track, and then you press this button right here. You right click it, and then you press sidechain to this track. Now you go to your frequency limiter. You can do this with any compressor, but I chose to do it with the frequency limiter because it's native to FL. You're gonna see on limit mode by default, and then you go to compression mode, and then on the sidechain tab right here, you're gonna see the name of the track right here. You just press it, bam, and then you set the threshold in which you want the compression to start. Let's just hear it in context. And let's just hear it without it. They're clashing a little bit. That's why I chose to sidechain. So this is the knee, which is how hard you want the compression to hit pretty much. You can set it to a soft knee or a hard knee. And then you set the ratio. It's like actually a pretty high ratio. I'm using 14:1. You can go all the way if you're doing some hard sidechain, or you can go all the way down. Well, not all the way down because you're not doing anything right here. And then the release, you set it depending on your bass. So if you got a long bass, you should set the release accordingly. So hear it in context. You hear what it's doing? It's basically telling how long it's gonna take for the compressor to go back to normal. You can actually calculate the correct release time depending on the length of the note. There's actually some math behind it, but most of the time I just use my ears, man. Now let's move on to my melodies, because I want to show you how I process my synths and everything. So I just started with this sample, which I reversed. I processed this one a lot in a different project, and I brought it up here. I already processed it to the level I wanted it to be, and I did a lot of, you could say, pre-production on it. The next thing I have is this background synth. First, I added some EQ because it has a lot of low end, but I shouldn't have gone. Don't go that steep with that curve right here. You know, that's me doing it fast. And then after that, you already know we had to add some chorus to make it big. Now the next thing I added was the background lead. And yeah, I just wanted that lead to see a little bit in the background because it's really trippy. It's like an abstract type of sound. I set the stereo separation to like 60%. I just lowered it in volume. I don't like adding thousands and thousands of plugins in a single chain, and then it's like too mudded up, you know what I'm saying? And then what I added was this synth lead. So in this case, the only thing I'm doing is panning it to the right. It needed its own space. Now let's just hear this one, which is the reverse tri-freeze sample. Shout out tri-freeze. That's pretty much all I did for that one. Then it comes the verse melody, which is my most processed sound. You see, I'm keeping it really simple, bro. Like, all you need to do is set the right levels, then choose the space in which you want it in the context of the whole mix. This is the melody. Okay, so I'm doing a little bit more of creative processing on this one. First thing I added was this EQ. Then I added an RC20 with the Vinyl 1 preset, a little bit of wobble, a bunch of distortion. I added a shaper box with the plug rhythm preset. She's doing a whole lot. Let's just hear it without it first. And then with it. But I don't know if you guys have noticed this from my previous videos, but Shaperbox is one of my favorite plugins. And then the last thing I added, I wanted some delay, some simple delay with the stock Fruity Delay 3. I panned it a little bit to my left and just turned it down a little in volume because it was doing too much. Now let's just go to my melody bus. Okay, so the first thing I added was this Pro Q3. Again, I'm doing a low cut or high pass, whatever you want to call it, at around 70 hertz. Then I cut a little bit of the mids at around 1.1K. If somebody hops on this, then you're gonna want to make space for the vocals, and the vocals are gonna be sitting right in the middle of the track. So that's another tip for y'all. Okay, I also have an SSL 9000J in my melodics bus. I just use it to give that analog sounding effect. It's essentially a really clean channel strip when compared to the other SSL channel strips that Plugin Alliance has. You have a THD control right here, which is the total harmonic distortion, and the noise level right here. It just gives that analog sounding effect, so I still use it for that. And then I added some deja vu. This is like a halftime effect, but it's a free plugin, so that's why I use it. It's automated, I think, in some parts of the beat, but I'm not gonna get into automation today. If you want me to make a tutorial on automation, I can do it, but not today. Now on my Mixbus, I got a bunch of different plugins. Okay, so the first 3 plugins are just automations, and the only plugin I got on my Mixbus right here is this Pure Limit by Sonable. Now usually I do add a lot more Mixbus processing because I like to do what it's called top-down mixing, which is you start mixing with some plugins already on your Mixbus, like maybe a compressor or a limiter or some EQ. But for this one, I literally just wanted to limit it. It doesn't sound like Pro L2 obviously, but just get a different type of limiting, so that's fine. And then the last thing I could explain is this, my reverb bus. I think I already mentioned this in my previous video, but I could go into more detail with this. I like to use Valhalla Vintage Reverb. Obviously, it's one of my favorite reverbs of all time. Sometimes I use more than one reverb in my tracks, but I just set it to concert hall. Obviously 100% mix because I'm using it as a send. I got a kind of a long decay to me. 4 seconds, that's fine. I'm doing a low cut and a high cut, even though I'm gonna do it afterwards anyway. I just like to be, you know, maybe I sound kind of paranoid, but that's just me, man. I like to be short. And then I EQ the reverb. I cut some of the highs, then I cut some of the lows because I don't want them in the mix. Yeah, that's pretty much how I control my reverb. Sometimes you could compress it and you could saturate your reverb. I didn't find the need for any of this in this fairly simple beat. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support, and please go like, comment, and please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot so I can keep making these videos, and I appreciate you guys. So thank you so much for watching. Peace.